Hello everyone, it's Neil here from 3D Tutor, back today with a short tutorial, and because of the massive uptake of my last free material pack, I'm also here with a new one, and this time it's even better. For those of you that use Unreal Engine, because not only is there a Blender material pack, but I also have converted these textures into a material pack for Unreal. And of course, you can head on over to my Gumroad page to download all of these and a ton more of free stuff. And if you want to support the channel or you want an amazing learning and fast track experience, then check out the courses and models also available over there. I'll be creating more of these as long as the demand is there. And on this occasion, I'm looking for 300 likes for the next one, so spread the video far and wide, like and subscribe to help get it out to more people. And please stay tuned to the end of the video for some great channel news that I don't think you'll want to miss. So enough of all that, let's get started and see this material pack. So here we are in Blender for the new material pack, and this one is based around nature. You can see that we've got some bamboo, we've got some clay, we've got a nice riverbed there as you can see, pebbles and things like that, which are really going to help you actually create environments. I've also put in there, just because I liked it, something like wicker, so you can see this wicker basket effect with the actual alphas applied and everything like that. You can also see we've got a tree trunk here and an actual palm tree. Now over on the right hand side, if we click on one and we go to the material, you can see that all of the materials are actually named. All of them, if we go to the shading, are actually created correctly. And if I go back to modeling now, you'll see that the actual camera, if I press tab, press 0, is also set up ready to actually take a render. Also on the right hand side, you'll see the scene collections, all of them are in the correct collection under materials. All of them are named correctly, so it's just really easy for you to actually download this, open it and actually go. Now you'll find in my other videos, I'll show you a way how to actually bring materials in using a pen, so go and have a look for those. You'll also see if you come up to file and go right down to external data, that everything has been packed into the blend file, so when you download this, everything should open up for you. Now let's head over to the Unreal pack and you'll see exactly what we've got in there. So when you download the Unreal pack, you'll actually load up the level and this is what you'll have. So you can see that we've got our reeds, we've got our wicker, we've got all of these parts already in there. And if I press just F11 just to get out of cinematic, all you need to do is just double click this basic level setup and that's actually what you're going to find in there. Again, you'll see that if I close this up, that everything is named correctly, so you'll never be really lost. You'll also see if you come to the texture maps that all of the texture maps are actually in the right places. You can also see that we are using the actual Unreal textures. This is a combined texture, which actually as part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you actually how to do. Now, if we come back to texture maps and content, you'll see that we've also got our materials all laid out here, which basically means I can pick a material, bring it in and just drop it on to whatever I want to. So you could bring in a mesh and just drop it straight onto there and then you'll end up with this material. It's also great if you actually want to create an environment. If you look up online how to create environments, you'll be able to use these materials and paint them on and things like that. Now some would ask why I don't do the same thing for Unity, and the truth is I actually started out with Unity and loved it. Then I found Unreal and to be honest, it just jives with me, as I think a lot of software does for each of us. For me, I find Maya a real pain in the ass to use, even though I can and will use it when I need to. I find for me, the best place to retopologize my models is definitely going to be Topogun, which I'm sure many of you have probably never even heard of. So it swings and roundabouts and courses for horses. Simply put, it suits my workflow using Unreal Engine. That's not to mention setting up textures in Unity is by far easier, a lot more limited in my opinion, but far easier. So now let's take a look at how to actually create materials for Unreal. First of all, let's head over to a great site for materials, and that would be CCO Textures. After all, you can give someone a fish or teach them how to fish, and I'm a firm believer in the latter. So here we are over at CCO Textures, and you can see they've got a ton of materials that are free to use, free to download, and free to use whether you're a corporation or whether you're an individual. It doesn't really matter, they are free to use. All that they ask is you just credit them with the materials when you use them. So let's take a look at how we convert these. So first of all, let's grab something like this. So this is a brick one. If I click on this, let it load up, you'll see that it comes up with all the textures. So you can see here that we've got JPEGs, we've got PNGs, we've got 1K, 2K, 4K, and even 8K textures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all grab the PNG, so this one here, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to actually download it and put it in a file. And then we'll go from there and I can show you exactly how this works. So here we are in the file. I've actually created a new file for it. I'm just going to double click it and then I'm going to save it out. And then I'm going to wait for this to actually download. Once it's downloaded, which it has done now, so I'm going to right click, I'm going to show in folder, and I'm going to open that up with extract here. So I'm going to extract it out and you should end up with 5 textures. So let's just change the view, put them on large, and there are 5 textures. Let's delete this. We don't actually need that anymore. And now we've got our 5 textures ready to go. And you'll know already that you can actually bring these straight in now to Blender. But we all know how to do that already. So let's now have a look how we can change these ready for Unreal Engine. So here we are back in Blender. And what I'm first of all going to do, I'm just going to delete all of these out of the way. We don't really need those. And then what I'm going to bring in, I'm going to bring in a plane and I'm going to just scale it up. Now the thing is, because you've brought a plane in, you'll notice if you go over to your UV editing, you can see that it's actually covering the entire UV map. And the reason for that is I've not scaled it on this way and made it a rectangle or anything like that. I've basically just kept the actual plane. Now, if I press Shift Space and I just move that over there, so I'm just going to move it over here, and then let's bring in a cylinder. So Mesh, come to Cylinder, and let's bring in this nice cylinder. Now, again, if I leave this cylinder exactly as it is, and just scale it up a little bit like so, and then I press Tab, you can see as well that this is also UV unwrapped. So I've not done anything, I've kept the same amount of vertices, and Blender already has it already unwrapped. So now what we need to do is I need to smooth this off first of all. So I'm going to right click, shade smooth, and then come over to where it says normals. I'm going to click on auto smooth. And now you can see we've got a nice smooth area. Now the next thing you want to do, because we are going to take it into Substance Painter, is that you want to apply a material onto each of these. And the reason for that is because we don't want them to share the same UV space. So how Substance Painter deals with different actual objects is based on what material's on them. So if I come to this one first and I just create a simple basic material, so click new, and we'll have this as white just so we can see. We'll also put this on material so we can see that it's white, and then we'll come to our cylinder and we'll do the same thing again. New, and I'll just put this as a red color. Now you can see that they're actually different. Now let's go back to modeling so we can see what we're doing. Let's put it on material so we can see that they're still the same, and then we'll grab both of these. So I'm going to shift select this one, shift select the second one, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to File. I'm going to actually export them out as an FBX. So let's export them out. Now let's find the actual bricks that I want to put them in. So here is the file with my bricks. I'm going to double click it, and I'm just going to call this template, like so. Enter it once, don't click it twice, and then what you want to do is you want to limit to selected objects. That's in case you've got anything else in the scene. You don't actually want to have more than just these coming through. And then if we scroll down and we go to geometry, let's just make sure that smoothing is on faces. And the reason I do that is just to make sure that the smoothing on this cylinder is actually correct. It'll be nice and smooth going round. So that's exactly what I want. Finally, then all you can do is you can click export. Now that's done, we need to head on over to Substance Painter where we can convert these into textures we can actually use for Unreal Engine. And here we are in Substance Painter, and what we first need to do is we need to come up to File now, and what we need to do is click on New. So let's now open up PBR Metallic Roughness Algorithmic. You can keep it on there. If it's not on there, just put it on there and then select your file. Now go to where we actually put the actual FBX. And here we are with our brick. So if I double click on here, you can see this is the template that we're actually using. So double click that and bring that in. Now I tend to put my document resolution on a 2048. You can put yours on a little bit lower if you're struggling when it actually first loads up. So just click that on. All of the other options can stay exactly the same. And now you need to do is come down and click OK. Next of all, you'll see that these load up, and here they are. You'll also see that both of these now have different materials. So if I actually move this over, this is the actual plane. And if I click on the next one, you can see that's our actual cylinder. Now, before we put any textures or anything on here, we actually just need to quickly bake them out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my texture set. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and you'll see we've got one that says bake meshes. So let's now bake these out. Now you can bake them both at the same time. So if I click on bake meshes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use low poly mesh as high poly mesh. I'm going to click that on. I'm also going to change the output size to 2048. And I'm also just going to click off ID, just so we bake out everything else but the ID. We don't actually need the ID, so we might as well not bother baking that. Next of all, we don't really need to mess around with any of this because we've used the low poly mesh as the high poly mesh because we don't actually have anything else. This is just a template. Next thing we do, we need to come down and we need to click on selection, and you can see that we've got both of ours selected. Now, if I come back to common, we'll come down and it'll say bake selected textures, and that should bake both of these out. So that's everything done. All you need to do now is click bake selected textures, and you can see it's actually working on them both, and let both of these bake out. And then what you need to do is, once this is done, I suggest you go and save this out as a template so that you can use it on any other materials that you bring in. Now, just to see if it works, if I click on this, which is my actual plane here, you can see if I come into one of my smart materials, for instance, let these load up, and what I'll do is I'll just drop the material over. So I'll come back to my layers. You can see I've got layer 1. Let's just drop this material in, and there we go. We can see it works. We can come to this one now and actually see if that one works, and there we go. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the first one. I'm going to delete both of those, come to the second one, and I'm also going to delete both of those. Now, you might ask, why have we got a plane and an actual cylinder? And the reason for that is, if you're working on bricks and things like that, sometimes it's a really good idea to actually see them on a cylinder, and sometimes some materials like wood, for instance, is really good to see them on a flat plane. That is the reason we do that. Now, what we need to do is we need to bring in now our textures that we downloaded from CCO textures. So let's do that next. So here we are back with our actual textures. So let's double click our bricks, and we've got 5 textures here. So let's click on one, shift click the end one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag them down now and drop them into anywhere in this gray box here. So let's drop them in. Let's put that down, and now you'll see that all these textures come in like this. What we need to do now is just change all of these to texture. So just come down and click them all on texture, like so. And then what you need to do now, you need to import your resources to, and if I click on this, you can see that I've got shelf, which is something I've called, or I've got current session. Now, if you want to keep these actual textures in for further use, then make an actual new shelf and actually save them in there. And then they will load actually in with Substance Painter every single time you load it up. For this time though, I'm just going to click current session, and then I'm going to click import, and then my 5 textures will all be here. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is now we need to actually apply these textures onto this plane. So let's come over, and what we're going to do is going to use a fill layer, and when you click that on, you'll see that you get these options down here. So I've got color, height, roughness, metal, and normal. Now we can see that over here we've got a color. So let's drag that in to the base color. I'm actually going to put them on my plane, so I'm going to do that instead. So what I'm going to do is do a new fill layer, and I'll actually put them on here. Now let's bring it over again onto the color, and there we go. Let's bring in the normal. So let's come down and look for the normal, like so. Let's look, I think this one's ambient occlusion. Now at the moment you can see that I haven't got an ambient occlusion on here, but if you do want to bring one in, simply go to your texture settings, and you'll see that you can actually bring in more. So you'll see we've got channels here. Click on the plus button and come down to where it says ambient occlusion. And then if I scroll up, you can see now we've got one called AO, and I can click that on. And now I can simply bring over my ambient occlusion and put it in. And you can see it makes a real big difference. Now, what others have we got? So if we scroll over, you can see we've got one displacement. Now, displacement I tend to use as my actual height. So I can bring that over, drop that in, and you can see what difference that makes. Now, it really starts to bring all those bricks out. Now, we've got another one, which is the roughness, which is this one here. So I'll bring that over, and I'll put this in the roughness, and now you can see just how nice that actually looks. Now, the metallic is either 0 or 1. You don't really have anything unless it's a map with some metal on, some plastic and some brick or something like that. But generally on a texture like this, it's either metallic or it isn't. So in this case, it's not metallic, so the metallic map doesn't really matter. Now, the next thing we need to do now is come up and actually name this. So I'm going to call it brick. Just to make it simple, you can see that I need to double click it. For some reason, I don't know why, but if you just put it straight in, it doesn't actually delete it. So there we go, brick. And now what I want to do is I actually want to export this out. Now before I do that, I will quickly go over, you can actually change anything on here. You can change the color, you can change how big the height map is or the normal map. And the easiest way to do that on here is right click, come down and add levels. And then all we need to do is change what this level is. And the moment you can see its color. So if I bring this up, you can see I can make it a lot darker. I can really refine how dark it is and things like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, let's change the height, for instance. So add levels, come down, put this on normal. And now you can see that I can actually bring them down or really bring them up. And it's very easy then to change it, ready to go over to Unreal Engine. Now I'm going to take that off. I'm going to be happy with what these bricks look like. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to File. I'm going to go down to Export Textures. And why I named that is because then when I export textures, they will all come through with that name. So Export Textures. I don't actually want to send out the cylinder, so I'm just going to turn that off. I've got my brick here. And then what I need to do, first of all, I need to select the actual file that's going to go in. So let's click on this. So here are our bricks again. I'm going to double click that. I'm going to make a new folder and I'm just going to call it UE4. Enter, double click it, and now select folder. And there we go. That's where it's going now. Now the next thing you need to do, you need an output template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this. I'm going to scroll down and you'll see you've got one that says Unreal Engine 4 packed. So if I click on there, you can see now that that is how it's going to be output, which I will show you in a minute. Everything else pretty much can stay the same. I wouldn't mess around with any of these other settings because it's not really a UV map. It's actually a material that we're actually creating here. So there is no gaps and things like that in there, which means that we don't need to mess around with the actual padding. Finally, just make sure that it's actually being exported out based on your texture set, or you can actually make sure it's actually being out at 2048. You can also upscale this as well while doing that. Now, what I want to do is now click export, and there we go, it's actually exported out. And then if I click open output directory, here they are. So you can see now we've got that actual material that we need for Unreal. Now let me just put this down for 1 second and show you one more thing that you might want to do before actually sending them through, is you might actually want to change the scale. So if I come over again and scroll up, I might want to change the scale to 2, and you can see now that we've actually changed it now to 2. And because I think nearly all of the textures on CCO textures are actually seamless, it's actually very easy to change that. And what that enables you to do then is to make it very easy for when you bring it into Unreal Engine to actually have a material that looks really right off the bat. So now, enough of that, we've actually sent it through, and now we need to go over to Unreal and show you actually how to bring it into Unreal. So here we are in Unreal again, and what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to grab this one, I'm going to click the Alt button and just pull that across, and that'll create another one for me. And now I just want to create that material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my materials. And here are my brick materials, and I'm going to grab all 3 of these and I'm going to bring them in and drop them in. And there they are. Now the first thing you'll notice is it comes up with this. It just wants to convert the normal map. I'm going to click OK. And then what I'm first of all going to do, it's important that you actually do this, is double click on this. And just to make sure that the actual texture is going to go right, all you want to do is just tick off this sRGB and then click Save. And then you know now that the material will go on absolutely perfectly. Let's close that down. And what we'll do now is we'll create a new material. So I'm going to right click and come up to material, and then we're going to call it brick material, like so, and then I'm going to double click it and open that up. Now let's drag all 3 of these and actually bring them into place and then set them up correctly. So let's pull this one down like so. Now the color just wants plugging into the base color from the RGB. The normal from the RGB again, just wants plugging into the normal. And then we've got the actual group textures. And what I want to do is, first of all, I want to grab the red, which is the R, and actually plug that into the ambient occlusion. Then we come to the green, which is going to go into the actual roughness. And finally, we come to the blue, which is going to go into the metallic. And now you can quickly see what it's actually going to look like on here. And now all you need to do is click Apply. Click Save, close it down, and now let's grab our new material and drop it on. And there you go. You can see if I press F, how clean and easy that was to actually bring in there. So now I hope you really enjoyed that actual demonstration of actually how to do that. And now on to the channel news. So I've decided to, as well as do short tutorials and free courses, to also look at ways to use my channel to get a wider reach. I really don't want to be pigeonholed into only creating this type of content. And although I do love it, I want to do other things at the same time. I was thinking of doing things like Q&A, but Blender Guru kind of stole my thunder there, and he's a pretty awesome guy, so I don't really want to tread on his toes. So another few ideas would be actually going into games and looking at how artwork is made. I'm also thinking of doing a few videos on how to make income from Blender, which people are always asking me about. And unless you're sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, it can be quite tough. So I'm asking you all to let me know what you think of these ideas, and more importantly, put down any ideas you may have in the comments down below. It would be greatly appreciated. So as always, check out the links down below. Lots of courses, lots of free content, and lots of ways to support the channel. A big shout out to my patrons. They really help me survive. I can never thank you enough. And as always, happy modeling everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.